So, what if the whole goal wasn't to retire rich someday, but to actually live rich right now? Today, we're going to tear apart the core ideas from Tim Ferriss's truly game-changing book, The 4-Hour Workweek. This thing is basically a blueprint for ditching the 9 to 5 and designing a life you actually want to live, a life of freedom, a life of adventure. All right, let's dive in. You know, the whole book really kicks off with this simple but super powerful idea, and Mark Twain just nails it here. It's basically a challenge, right? A challenge to question the path that pretty much everyone else is on. I mean, is that 40-year career plan, that so-called safe route, is that really the best we can do? All right, so what exactly is this majority path we're supposed to be questioning? Well, Ferris has a name for it. He calls it the deferred life plan. And honestly, it's the core problem he's trying to solve. And here's the trap, right? This is the big one. The idea that you work yourself to the bone for, 40 years. You save up, and then you finally get to start living when you retire. It's the script society hands us, trading our best, most energetic years for some vague promise of relaxation someday. But here's the kicker. What if someday never comes? Or what if it's just not what you thought it would be? And what's crazy is that this isn't just a problem for regular folks. It hits the super successful too. Ferris tells the story about a magnate he met on a plane. This guy was loaded. He owned gas stations, convenience stores, the whole shebang. But when asked which business he actually liked, his answer was none of them. He was fantastically wealthy, but he was miserable. As Ferris puts it, he was one of the living dead. And look, this wasn't just him observing other people. The author himself slammed right into this wall. He'd built a super successful company, making, 70 grand a month? But it had become his own personal prison. He was pulling 15-hour days, felt totally trapped, and had this huge realization. The problem wasn't a lack of money. The problem was the system he had built for himself. The vehicle was broken, not the driver. Okay, so if that old model is so broken, what's the alternative? Well, this brings us to the absolute core concept of the book, a whole new class of people who are completely rewriting the rules of what it means to be wealthy. And this is the crucial distinction right here. The new rich, as he calls them, they aren't defined by how much money is in their bank account. Nope, they're defined by their freedom. They use time and mobility as their real currencies, and they use them to build these incredible lives in the here and now, not in some far-off distant future. And this chart just lays out the shift in mindset perfectly. Look at this. It's not about being the boss who has to do everything anymore. It's about owning a system that pretty much runs itself. The goal isn't just to work for yourself, it's to have others work for you. See? It's a complete flip of the traditional career ladder. Okay, so all of this sounds pretty incredible, right? I mean, who wouldn't want that? But there's always a but, and this one is a massive roadblock that stops most people dead in their tracks: fear. So how in the world do we get past it? Just think about it for a second, really. What are you putting off right now out of fear? Maybe it's that business you've been dreaming about, or that big trip you keep saying you'll take one day. What's the fear that's really holding you back? This really gets to a deep psychological truth about us, doesn't it? We would rather be unhappy than uncertain. We actually get comfortable in our misery because, hey, at least it's familiar. It's like staying on a sinking ship just because we're too terrified to jump into the lifeboat. So to combat this, Ferris has this simple but incredibly powerful exercise he calls fear setting. Instead of just letting this vague anxiety run your life, you get super specific. You write it all down. Step 1. What is the absolute worst-case scenario? In detail. Step 2, how could you prevent it or at least minimize the damage? And step 3, how would you recover? How would you get back to where you are right now? When he did this for himself, he realized the risk of taking a year off was maybe a temporary 3 or 4 out of 10, for a payoff that was a permanent 9 or 10. Suddenly, the choice was obvious. So once you've wrestled that fear to the ground, you need a system, a practical toolkit. And Ferris provides one in his 4-part framework, DEAL. It stands for definition, elimination, automation, and liberation. We're going to touch on a few of the key ideas from this whole process. First up is E, for elimination. And this all starts with the famous 80-20 principle, or the Pareto principle. The idea is simple. What are the few critical things you do that get you most of your results? And more importantly, what's all the other junk that's just wasting your time? The goal here is to be absolutely ruthless in eliminating the non-essential. A really key tactic for elimination is what he calls the low information diet. The thinking here is that most of the information we cram into our brains every day, the news, the social media feeds, it's time-consuming, it's usually negative, and honestly, it's completely irrelevant to our actual goals. By cutting it out, even for a few days, we reclaim our focus and our mental energy for what actually matters. Just ask yourself one question. Am I definitely going to use this information for something immediate and important? If the answer is no, just let it go.
All right, next up is A for automation. And this quote from Esquire's editor A.J. Jacobs just captures the power of this perfectly. He literally outsourced huge parts of his life to a team in Bangalore, everything from answering his emails to, get this, arguing with his wife for him. Now, that's an extreme example for sure, but it illustrates the core principle. Build systems and delegate every single thing you possibly can.
Okay, so does any of this stuff actually work in the real world? Or is it all just a nice theory? Well, let's look at a few stories of real people who have actually made this lifestyle a reality. First, take Dale Begg Smith. His skiing coaches were on his case, telling him he was spending way too much time on his internet company. But instead of choosing between his business and his Olympic dream, he just did both. He moved to Australia, found a more flexible coaching team, and then went on to win a gold medal in skiing. It just proves you don't always have to sacrifice your passions. Or how about the Seckleys? They're part of this whole community of families who set sail from France to circumnavigate the globe. And you know what they found? This incredible, life-changing adventure for their family was actually cheaper than their normal life and their rent back in Paris. How amazing is that? And then there's Hans. Hans was a lawyer, and he was bored to tears. I mean, he'd literally slept under his desk at the office and was just dreading the next 40 years. But then, one paragliding trip in Brazil changed everything. He realized that real risk, well, it wasn't nearly as scary once you actually faced it. He flew back, walked into the office on Monday, and quit. You know, all these stories show what's possible when you just stop putting up with a bad situation. And this quote is such a powerful reminder of that. Letting pride or fear keep you stuck in a bad decision, well, that's a mistake that only gets harder and harder to fix over time. Ferris tells this really funny story about making a cheesecake that turned out to be absolutely disgusting. But because he'd put all this time and effort into it, he forced himself to keep eating it. And it's just a perfect metaphor, isn't it? For the jobs, the relationships, the situations we stick with long after we know they've gone bad. So the final question isn't for him, it's for you. What self-imposed suffering are you tolerating right now? What cheesecake are you eating?